Hey, this week's video, I'm going to be talking about the years that I spent dating someone who turned out to have schizophrenia. Now, when I was in the relationship with this person, I did not have any idea what their mental illness diagnosis was. As far as I knew, they didn't have mental illness, and we were very young, we were teens, so perhaps their symptoms weren't quite as severe as they got later on into their adulthood. However, I did always suspect that there was something off, something very wrong with this person. It's the reason we're no longer dating. Today I have Grizzo, and this cute little gremlin guy he's gonna be my buddy and keep me safe and feeling warm and cozy. You know the drill. All right, let's begin. I met this person while I was in that weird window of time, my freshman year in high school. I had mentioned in a previous video that my parents pulled me out of public school. I was homeschooled, and then the start of freshman year, they did allow me to go and attend the public high school for all of 2 weeks. And in the 2 weeks I was there, I managed to get into a lot of trouble. So I met this person. It was one of those things where I just instantly had a crush, instant attraction, and it wouldn't be for another 2 or 3 years till we would get together. So fast forward to my junior year of high school. I had just gotten released from the mental hospital, which you can hear all about my experience there in my previous video. And I quickly got into a relationship with this person. They asked me out, and I always found that pretty odd that I was so fresh off of a trip, an involuntary trip to the mental hospital, and yet they saw me and thought, this chick is it. This is a good person to hitch my wagon to, right? Doesn't that seem like a red flag? I don't know. High school, man, we were teenagers, we were dumb. They were probably hurting as much as I was, but I'll never know for sure. And at that point, I'm 16. I just thought it was great that the person I've had a crush on for several years is returning. Those feelings are mutual between us. So I very excitedly agreed. Yes, we'll be your girlfriend. And it was a pretty for the first year, is very typical boyfriend girlfriend relationship, high school. Not a lot to not too newsworthy. I'm stumbling on my words a lot, and if it seems like I'm kind of nervous, I am, because I don't talk about this very often. This is basically ancient history by now, and it is very sensitive topic, and I am trying very hard to choose my words carefully because it's not my intent to divulge any information that is too personal or that this person would want to have kept private. So bear with me, guys, okay? But I think there's an important lesson here to be learned from my experience. So normal boyfriend girlfriend stuff. There was some chaos and dysfunction, but like I said, we were both a couple of punks, so of course we weren't going to stay out of trouble. By the time I got kicked out, I had already graduated high school. I was 18 years old. This person I had been dating for over a year at that point. So where I left off in that video was my parents kicked me out. They gave me 2 trash bags I could fill, said, pack your stuff and go. I load up my little my little crappy car at the time. And I met up with my boyfriend and all of our friends at the movie theater from that point, and we watched the world premiere of that movie, Where the Wild Things Are, and I was feeling quite shooketh. I was very dissociated. I think I immediately got drunk, and My boyfriend, though, he was very supportive. Like, he didn't seem alarmed by the events that had transpired that night. In fact, he was like, oh, well, there's no doubt about it. You'll move in with me. And I didn't really consider that. I don't know. I'm sure like I wanted to live with them, but at that point it wasn't in the plan. You know, they were very generous to offer a roof over my head, though. It was that or be homeless, live out of my car, right? So I agreed. Didn't have too much stuff to move in, just 2 trash bags. Now, my boyfriend, they were living with their older brother at this point in time. I don't recall like requesting the older brother's permission, but I'm sure my boyfriend at the time talked to him about it because it happened really quickly. I think that night I moved in essentially. So that felt like a blessing that I had someone who cared about me, somebody who was looking out for me. I was very vulnerable at that time, which also isn't great because, again, people, even the people you date or marry or align yourself with, don't always have your best interests in mind. But, you know, it was slim pickings, so I went with it. The second year that we dated, there seemed to be a decline in their overall mental health. Our relationship was beginning to deteriorate as well. I'm under a lot of stress, you know, trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life. I had just gotten off of like my recent childhood just ended with an extremely dysfunctional Mormon family. I'm now living with my boyfriend, living with him in sin, according to my parents, because we weren't married yet, and we were intimate, of course. Of course we were. And I just felt like we were going in different, I was like growing up in a different direction rapidly because I needed to make things happen. And although we had also, like, there was some, like, you know, when you're that young, you're only 18, you're just starting out in your adult life. Of course, there was like the fantasy of, I'm going to be with this person forever. Maybe we'll have kids one day. Marriage was never discussed. Like, I never felt that they were gonna like propose to me anytime soon. It just wasn't in like our like in our wildest dreams. We weren't like discussing that, so it just wasn't really like on the menu. But I think I did hear them once like say that they wanted to just have like a bunch of kids someday, although that wasn't like directed at me specifically. They just kind of said it off the cuff, and I was like, oh, are they thinking about having kids with me someday? And just didn't feel like anything that I wanted, especially with this person, because they were like an okay boyfriend. I knew they were not going to be a good spouse, though. On the other hand, I thought that they would be a pretty good parent. So, you know, that's kind of sad that you think like, well, I could have a bunch of babies with this person and they'd be really fun, you know, the kids would love them, but I could just like, I could already foresee like what my life as like the mother to their children was going to be a nightmare. Okay. As I said, relationship already deteriorating. So I noticed an uptick in their own insecurity with themselves, but specifically their insecurity towards me as their partner. And I was very fine girlfriend at this point. They didn't have any reason to you know, accuse me of the outrageous things that they did. I'm gonna go ahead and just use the word paranoid. That's what they ended up being. It was extreme paranoia from them. And it kind of happened, it wasn't very gradual. It really like accelerated, which is not fun because this was only like the second relationship I was ever in, and I'm dealing with this very insecure person who is just, you know, very controlling. They encouraged me to cut my hair short. I did it because I wanted to cut it very short. It was cute, by the way. But they were very, very like pushing for that. They also got to the point where they just didn't want me wearing my own clothing, you know, like women's clothing. And I wasn't dressing, at that point I was still pretty like tomboy. I was not like drawing attention to myself as this like very flirty girl. That wasn't me. But they very much were encouraging me to just wear their clothes, like men's clothes, which I liked because I'm a bit androgynous and again, tomboy. So I would wear their stuff. And at first it just felt like, oh, cute, you know, it's like my BF's hoodie or whatever. But he began to make more and more comments that were just so out of pocket and uncalled for. Things like, I don't want you like walking too many steps ahead of me because then it gives other guys the chance to like look at you or check out your butt or something. And I was like, nobody is doing that, okay? And if they are, like, oh well, you know, like, again, I'm not like, my butt isn't hanging out in anything I'm wearing, so who cares? There was another occasion when I had landed a little part in a local play because I was involved in a youth group, a Shakespearean acting troupe, and we did essentially like a play within a play. So I got cast in the role of Juliet, opposite from a male friend of mine who got cast as Romeo. And we only did like the balcony scene because, again, we were like the actors performing our parts like within a play. It was like 12th night. Anyways, so I was happy. I love attention, so of course I loved having that speaking role. And I, of course, invite my boyfriend. I'm like, come with me. We will, we'll hang out, like, come watch the show, and then, like, we'll hang out afterward, okay? You can drive me home. This was before I had moved in with him. I was still, like, in high school living with my parents, so, and he did. He came. He wasn't excited about it. Like, I don't know too many high school boys that love Shakespeare in the park, but I was happy that he came and supported me. He was in the audience, but not for long. In fact, like, I looked out and I couldn't see him by the time the show was wrapping up. I was like, where the heck did he go? So, you know, curtain call, we do our bows. Everyone's leaving, and we are supposed to stay after every performance to hear from our director. He gives notes. And that's mandatory, okay? You're not wrapped yet until after you stick around for notes. That's just like that's the way it goes in theater. So, of course, I want to stick around like I'm supposed to. But instead, my boyfriend finally turns up. I have no idea where he went. He stormed off. I don't think he even saw me give like my full performance. So I immediately knew, like, oh great, he's pissed. What is it now? And I just wanted to like keep him from like escalating and embarrassing me in front of my acting troupe and my director and my community. And I remember he was just like, let's go now. I'm taking you home. And I was like, I'm trying to explain, like, I have to stay for notes. Like, I have to. And he was like, we're going now. And I did the stupid thing and I went with him. I know I should have like checked in with my director. I should have just told him to wait, or I could have just like, you know, like, find your own ride home. But I didn't, because at that point I was like still in survival mode because I'm still living at home with my own like abusive parents, and I just am like, I gotta keep him from like doing something like really bad. That's just all my focus was on that. If you've been in a controlling relationship before, you know that feeling. So I like essentially left with my tail tucked between my legs. He's pissed off at me. The whole drive home, I'm driving, it's my car. The whole way home, he's just like berating me. Like, he was so furious because I embarrassed him because I was acting and I was performing lines to another person as if I were in love with them. I'm like, well, I'm a really good actress. Of course it's going to be believable. No, he didn't like that I was showing attention to, he either didn't like that I was showing attention to another guy, which it's like scripted for me to do that. It's not real. Hello. Or he didn't like that I was just getting attention, period. Like, he really didn't want anyone to look at me or to see me or to think highly of me. So, you know, that's like his worst nightmare, I guess, if he's like sitting amidst an audience that's like clapping for me, all eyes on me, and like supporting me, like cheating on him or whatever he thought that was. So he's like yelling at me, and it's a long drive home, and it's nighttime, it's after dark, and a cop pulls up behind us, and he whoop whoop, lights turn on. I have to pull over on the freeway. So I've got my awful boyfriend like yelling at me about something that entirely isn't my fault. It's all like perceived by him and his paranoia. While a cop, like the local like highway patrolman is pulling me over, and I'm like, this is a new low. So a cop pulls us over, he comes over the window. I want you to picture this. I'm a teenage girl and I am still wearing my Juliet costume. I still have my stage makeup on. I'm crying because I'm so humiliated about what my boyfriend, how he's behaving. I'm humiliated because I know I'm going to get in big trouble with my director. I know I'm in big trouble with my boyfriend, and now I'm about to be in big trouble from this cop. And he just pulls up and he's like talking about, you have your tail light is busted. And then he just like stops and he's like, what did I just come upon? Because I'm a crying like Juliet, like Shakespearean character who's obviously like in the midst of some domestic dispute with her little like boyfriend. And he went, luckily the cop went easy on me. I think he felt some sympathy and was like, I'll let you off with a warning. And like my boyfriend at that time was a mechanic too, so he's like, we got this, we'll fix your tailpipe, not a big deal. Bye, officer. So he lets us go and we go home. I do not remember the rest of the night, but I always thought that was so like embarrassing and just like so typically weird situation I'd find myself in around that time. And I did get in big trouble with my director at the next rehearsal. They were mostly just concerned about like, if it's an emergency, because that's kind of like how I described it, felt like an emergency, but they were like, you really need to tell us, like, you can't just dip out, you can't ghost us, you really let the company down. So I made it was the wrong choice. These days I really am so particular about who I surround myself with, because I don't want to get myself in stupid situations like that needlessly. I want people who are going to be good influences and like helping me like on my journey to success, rather than like tearing me down and like ruining my life. Like this person wanted to ruin my life is how it felt. And I don't just think I'm being like selfish or self-centered when I say that. So that sucked, and there was a lot more to come. But then like their bad behavior, it accelerated to a point where like some of the things they said were absolutely deserving of a slap on the face. And I still regret to this day that I never did give them because they really deserved it. So one of the worst things they ever said to me was, and at this point, my mom's dad had already been arrested for child molestation and being like a pedophile towards a lot of us granddaughters. So like and that was no secret, because anyone who was close to me the last few years was aware that this was like a huge ordeal my family was going to. Not only that, but it had been broadcasted on the news. Okay, so like I was in class and I had like teachers bring it up in front of the entire class to me when I was still in high school. Like mortifying, right? It was a small town. So with that in mind, my boyfriend at the time thought it was just like a great idea to freak out on me because one day I wore a V-neck. It was not low cut. I had the flattest chest back then, so there wasn't even any like cleavage for anyone's eye to be drawn to. Not that I even need to be defending it, you know, it was totally like a fine, appropriate shirt, but he didn't like it. So I remember, I'll never forget, unfortunately, he walks right up to me and I could just feel his energy, just cold and angry. And with a very straight face, he said to me, "Oh, nice shirt. I bet your grandpa loves it." that was so cutting. I mean, the fact that like my mom's dad, it was very recent that he had gotten busted for harming a lot of little kids in my family. Like he knew that, and he used that against me specifically to hurt me. And for what? Because I'd worn a shirt that he didn't deem like modest enough, like covering enough. Also, once again, I was ex-Mormon, very recently like escaped from the church at that point. So of course I don't want to be constricted to the previous modesty guidelines that were strictly enforced in my home growing up. So yeah, I'm gonna wear whatever I want at this point, and it's a shame that my boyfriend at the time wanted me to essentially like regress back to, like, I don't think he actually wanted me shedding that like Mormonism from me, which is odd because he himself and his whole family are not Mormon. They weren't religious at all. So, but I think that he maybe initially was attracted to me because I seemed subservient. He learned pretty soon, like, that's not me. Okay, so that was horrible. I really choked up in the moment. I froze because unfortunately that tends to be my fight or flight reaction tends to be like freeze. So I really wish I would have given him a smack in that moment though, but I just got, we were just like pissed at each other the rest of the night. Like that's how that went. And then, so we're living together at his older brother's house, and then other things were strange because this was the person that I gave my virginity to. So we were intimate often. And I just remember that pretty soon after moving into his brother's house, while we would be like in the act, he would like physically like cover my mouth and my nose sometimes. And it was not in like a kinky, like, oh, that's pretty like advanced, technique. No, it was to keep me quiet, to silence me. And I wasn't even making like noise to begin with. But I'd kind of be like, what the heck? And he'd explain to me very worriedly. He's like, I just don't want my brother to hear. I don't want him to hear us at all. And I was like, like he's much older than us. He gets it. Who cares? And my boyfriend at the time was like, no, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that he's going to get jealous, and then he's going to, I don't know what he's going to do. And I really don't want him to feel like left out or something. It felt so inappropriate for him to be thinking about his brother that much in that like moment, considering what we were doing. And it also seemed inappropriate for him to be like physically silencing me. That really did a number on me because again, this was like the first person that I was exploring my like physicality and like sexuality with. And so that was something that I had to like break through, like work through in the coming years, like with other partners I'd have, because I got trained, like he freaked me out about it, because then I'm thinking like he's planting that little worm in my brain of like, what will your brother do if he hears us? Like, it's a small house, I really just thought at first he was coming from a place of like general respect in like manners, but no, he was actually like tweaking out that like his brother's like got the room bugged or like listening, or his brother's gonna like retaliate. I don't know. I didn't like it though. And then, so it's a party house where we lived. There were so many parties, and that was fun because again, ex-Mormon, I'm like 18, and then I'm eventually turning 19, having my 19th birthday party there. It was a big, like, outrageous house party, and I had a lot of fun, probably too much fun. So it was like at the house where I was living. So it was like the bedroom's right there. I could like use it at my leisure. It was just very convenient. It felt like a very luxurious way to be in those like young adult years without having to worry about like a ride or designated driver or like a bathroom. It was all right there. But pretty soon my boyfriend, like I remember there was one Halloween where like the party was being hosted at the house we lived at, but instead my boyfriend insisted that we go like across town to his dad's house. And I was like, okay, maybe we could like start there, like watch a scary movie with your little sibling, and then like go back to our place where we're living so we can join the party. I want a party. And I just remember he he refused that night. He's like, no, we're not going. We can't go there. And I was like, who are you trying to avoid? These are all our friends. Like, what's going on? But we had to miss out on that fun party. Wah. Okay, but then things got worse because more parties were occurring at this house, and we couldn't just he wouldn't just whisk us out of the house for every single one. Instead, he would lock up he and I in his bedroom while the party is going on all around us. And I'm sure, cause my friends were there too, and I'm sure people are wondering maybe at first they thought oh wow, those two need a lot of privacy, ha ha ha, that kind of that would have been fun. But no, because again, he was paranoid about people hearing us. So we had to not only did he confine me to the room with him with the door locked, but it was strict don't make a sound. And I'm sure that we were if I recall, he and I had our own party favors going on in there. So at least it was not just sitting there, awkwardly and not indulging in anything fun. But still, I was what is going on? I'm 18, now I'm 19. For the first time in my life, I'm not beholden to anyone's rules. And yet I just found myself in somehow an even more controlling situation. I was so frustrated. But on the other hand, I thought I loved him. So I'm trying so hard to understand where he's coming from and help him out of his shell. Y'all, if your relationship, if you're that young and you don't have a lot of life experience yet, just end it, just run, okay? Because it's not worth it to sink your young formative years in someone who is willingly just spiraling down the toilet and wants to drag you down with them. And that's what was going on. So the more that he restricted, the more I resisted, and I was very turned off. But of course there was the necessity. I'm living with him and his brother out of survival, because it's again either that or I don't have anywhere else to go. So we ultimately were careening towards a breakup because I just wasn't going to put up with that much longer. But side note, that was living with them at that house was the catalyst that truly propelled me on my path toward working in sex work. These boys had their bathroom that was lined ceiling to floor with cutout images of naked women. They also had they had stolen remember they used to have newspaper stands or boxes or whatnot on the sidewalks of downtown. Excuse me. They had stolen one of those and they kept it in their bathroom, and they filled it to the brim with pornographic magazines, specifically one called Club magazine, which is or was a nudie mag. So this bathroom, it's a goon cave, the first of its kind I'd ever seen, and that really made an impression on me. It didn't make me uncomfortable, surprisingly, being the only girl living in a house with guys. It wasn't gross to me. I found it quite eccentric and artistic, and I'm gay, so it really turned me on. But mostly it inspired me, and I remember just being in that bathroom and just deciding, I was I'm gonna do this. I'm going to do this. I'm gonna find my way and get out of here, and I am gonna be a modern day pinup model. That was my first thought. I wanted to be sexy. I wanted to be wanted. I wanted to be desired. I wanted to be celebrated for my femininity. I didn't want it to be so threatening to someone that claimed to love me that they did their best to stamp it out. So I'm sure that he would hate to know that it was actually his home and their personal choice of decor that lit the fire under my butt to get that going, because I went from dating him, breaking up with him, and then almost immediately pursuing nude modeling and fetish modeling. So Valentine's Day rolls around, and he like made it a big point, and we've been dating for a couple years now, so you know, thought things could be serious, but he decided to make that day like a big, he's gonna get up on his like soapbox, and he made a big deal about how he's like, this is like a corporate holiday and it's greedy and it's stupid. He's like, I shouldn't have to convince you of my love for you just because this day says so. And I was like, look, dude, you can believe whatever you want. However, if you're going to be in a relationship with someone, especially me, you don't get to take this day that the focus should be about how much you love me and turn it into the opposite, okay? And he thought I was being like so out of line, and so, I mean, he was so annoyed that I was like pissed off that my boyfriend wanted to really like double down on like hating love on that day. I was like, you have someone who loves you and you supposedly love me. So I went to work and I was so mad that day because I went and worked on Valentine's Day, and you know, my coworkers are like getting flowers from their partners, and they're like, oh, we have all these plans afterward, and I'm like, all I'm gonna do is probably go home and fight with him and get locked in a room. Okay, so eventually I did make the decision to break up with him, but that meant I'd have to move out. And that meant that he could like push back, and he did not want to let me go easily. But you know, Valentine's Day, like that was annoying. There was like a lot of little annoyances, but ultimately I think it started to get through my head that like things had turned abusive. And again, ex-Mormon, it's not like my parents had ever taught me boundaries or to like not allow a man to just like impose whatever the hell he wants on me. You know, these were all like original ideas that I sprouted from my own head. Okay. So I'm really proud of myself for that because I was very young at this point and I had zero like role model to have mirrored that for me. I just knew like I wanted better than that. And so I tried breaking up with him. I know he freaked out, and it was hard because I had to like get out of that house. And so I did end up becoming homeless for just a little bit. I lived out of my car because I didn't have that much stuff yet. But that car, like, it became my lifeline. It was very precious to me. So he's my ex at this point. He began stalking me. He would come around to my work when I wasn't there and like ask about what my shifts were gonna be. And my boss at the time, she'd tell me, she'd be like, that weirdo ex of yours came around again. Like, do you want me to tell him to get lost? And like, I'll talk to him. It's okay. He would like drop off. I think maybe like once he dropped off like a bouquet of flowers at my work also. So that's unnerving because it's like, you don't even seem like you like me, and also take the hint, like we're done. It was just a high school relationship at the end of the day. We hadn't really like committed so much to each other that it should have been like a cleaner, just like moving on separation, but it wasn't. He really dragged it out and he really scared me in the process because he's stalking me. He's like coming into my other job and like just hanging out in the lobby because at that point I worked with like his best friend. So he's still around and like we're going to the same parties and stuff, and I'm trying to like spread my wings and like be like just doing whatever I wanted this time, you know, which meant like liberating myself. And I'm trying to do that. And he's like bearing witness to it. And all the while I could see that it's like tearing him apart. Like it's killing him. I'm like, it's really not my problem. Like you don't have to be here right now. So, it was, one day he came into my job and was like, please just like, so this happened a couple times where he'd be like, please, let's just talk. And I was like, okay, we can talk. It's not going to change things. We'll talk. So he's in my car on my lunch break, aka like my house that I'm living in. And he's like, you're really gonna do this? And I was like, yeah, it's done. And he punched a huge hole in my dashboard. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what the heck? Like, next it could be my face. And mind you, this was not the first time that he had damaged something in that car. Like the day that I bought that car, it was used, it was crappy, but I'm driving it off the lot. And this asshole, he like reaches up and he pretends like he's gonna adjust the rearview mirror, but he actually just like pulls it and like breaks it off the car. I have only owned that car for all of like 5 minutes and he already like broke it. And I was like, why did you do that? And he was like, oh, it's okay. I can, because he's a mechanic. So he's like, it's okay. I'm going to get you a better one. You know, like, F this. And I was like, dude, can we not like destroy my car? Can I have a chance to enjoy it and to drive it safely? That's like hazardous. You need your rearview mirror. So this was the second time that he had like taken out his like whatever weirdness or aggression on my poor little car. Again, I'm living in that car. So eventually, I mean, I wish I could say that I was like, get out, that's it, I never want to see you again. But I froze. I was terrified because I was like, he's capable of anything. Okay. I didn't know at the time that he was severely mentally ill, but I just was like, that's crazy. You're acting crazy. So he did get away from me eventually, and it was like a whole like lose my number and forget you ever knew me. And I was sure, okay. So but like also strange that he like stayed in touch with everyone else in my family, and they're all still like, all my family, not all, but like all my brothers and stuff are still like friends on all the like social medias with him. But like I was the one that wasn't allowed to like maintain a friendship with him. He like forbid it. And I was like, you know, dude, fine. Honestly, I kind of never want to see you again. You're scaring me. There was a lot more also that was happening. But at that point, I was just trying to focus on moving on. It wasn't easy though. And I'm sad to say that I went on to directly after that enter into an even more abusive and like long overextended relationship. That was a very awful pattern in my life, but you know, I had a lot of trauma and I was only like incurring more trauma. I really dug myself even deeper into this like pit of like dysfunction and destruction throughout my 20s. So I do want to say though that I only had to live out of my car for a couple of weeks. And while I was living in it, I took a Sharpie and I took like a Polaroid picture of it, but I don't think I still have the physical copy, but I wrote the words like, this too shall pass, on the sides like surrounding that big gaping hole, because I had to like stare at it and it was freaking me out. It wasn't a great like I don't know, what do you call that, like it didn't feel like a good like omen to see that there. So I wrote the little encouraging words in my car dashboard to give myself some hope. And I had like considered making like a diorama inside of it too, because you could just see like a gaping hole, like dashboard, and then like a big cave looking into the glove box. And I thought that would have been funny to make it like an for like art installation. But luckily, one of my very dear friends invited me to come move in with her and her wonderful mother in their home, and that gave me immediate like safety and shelter and support that I so desperately needed and also craved. And that was really like, that was girl power in their house. Shouts out to you, Olivia and Mama Kelly. I love you guys forever. So a lot more stuff went down during the time that I lived with them. And I lived with them for only like a very short, like brief amount of time. But that is all going to be saved for another video. It's too much to get into. Okay, so I didn't know that this person I had been dating and fell in love with was schizophrenic. I had my suspicions based on how alarming their behavior eventually became, but I wouldn't find out about their schizophrenia for 14 years after I'd broken up with them. And I got that news. I didn't hear from them because we haven't spoken, but it hit me like I got like a hot flash at the same time I got like icy chills through my veins. And this is very touchy. I want to speak very carefully on this because I myself have some pretty nasty mental illness issues. A lot of good people do, but there are a lot of bad people too that do. And schizophrenia is a big one. And the reason I felt such like horror at that revelation is because it fully brought to mind like the urgency of that situation. And this was untreated, unchecked schizophrenia, just the beginning stages that I was front row to, within him. And I just thought he was an asshole. I just thought he was like the most insecure person I'd ever met. I just thought he was controlling. A lot of young men and guys are. But I just felt like such panic for my inner child that was like 18, 19 at that point. And thank God that I listened to my heart and I followed my instincts. Something cued me into the fact that things were very much not right in that home with him, in that relationship with him, within himself. And, it was I had so much inner turmoil at that point because I have a big heart. I think I'm very empathetic to a fault. And I really grappled with like, dude, this person's obviously like going through something. They've helped me out by providing me with a place to live. The least I could do is to like stick by their side and like help them figure out what, their demons are. But it got to the point where I was like, I think I just somehow on like a primal level sensed the urgency and the real danger that I was in. And I got out of there and I had to fight like tooth and nail to be free from him. He was also doing stuff like after I'd broken up with him, if I was like not texting him back in a certain time frame, he called the local like police on me and reported me as like unaliving risk and was like, she's gonna hurt herself. So they'd come and track me down, and turns out I'd just be like hanging out at a friend's house. Like that kind of stuff would happen. I don't think he was actually concerned about me. I think he had like delusions and like mass hysteria and like aliens like downloading information. I don't know. I shouldn't like even make jokes about it. I really don't know like what the severity of his illness is. I don't know if he's been treated since then. I hope so though. But I'm really grateful that I didn't stick it out any longer, because you don't have to, okay? If you want to devote yourself to someone who's like very sick, more power to you. But like I myself need so much help and support with my own disabilities. There was no way that this was going to be a good or healthy situation for both of us. We were going to like tear each other down, like destroy each other, or I would have been like the weaker link, and who knows what would have happened. So I guess what I want to end this video with is I would implore you to listen to your intuition, okay? If alarm bells are being set off in you, you can't ignore that, okay? Especially if you're young. I don't care if you're dating a boy or a girl. You know when something is like beyond wrong, like it's at something at your core that you really can't ignore. Please don't ignore that. I wish I could go back and like end this earlier or avoid it altogether or be more prepared, but I wasn't prepared back then. I certainly wasn't. And like when I found out the news not that long ago about his mental illness, I wasn't prepared then either. It just, it's something that I'm still like processing, I think. I never thought I would be, in a relationship with somebody who is schizophrenic. I'll just say that. And not knowing that they are at the time either just makes it that much scarier and confusing. I do, on one hand, want nothing to do with them, but on the other hand, like I do wish them their best chance at recovery they could have. There's modern medicine, there's a lot of options for mental health now, like I'm always like going on about and praising. You have to handle your own stuff. Like we're all adults. I'm handling my stuff. I hope they're handling theirs, but it's not my problem. Okay. So, moral of the story is follow your heart. Don't confuse love with, like allegiance, and also, go talk to your local therapist if you or someone you think is in crisis, okay? Get help. That was a tough one, guys. I'm gonna go, I need a palate cleanser. Blah. Bye.